Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we are bringing you the inside story of making of the Operation Sindoor. Before we tell you what happens next, let's quickly recap what you have told you over the last 1 hour in Operation Sindoor Files. Chapter 1, there was a resolve to avenge Pahalgam immediately after the Prime Minister was given the information on April 22nd massacre when Prime Minister Modi was still in Riyadh. The strike strategy was decided when the PM was en route. I want to detail to you at this point that Prime Minister was accompanied by Dr. S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval to Riyadh, and it was on the flight back that a decision had then been taken en route to Delhi that there would be price that Pakistan would need to be able to pay. The objective was clear, a message to the world, a message to Pakistan and a message to Indians in India. The message to the world would be that we would fight this alone if required. The message to Pakistan, you've gone too far this time, this will not go unpunished. And the message to Indians, that security was a resolve for this government and Indians would not step back. They would not bend, they would not accept defeat, they would march on and they would decimate. That was the resolve and the objective even before the flight landed on the tarmac at Palam Airport in Delhi. When the Prime Minister landed in Delhi on the 23rd of April, he met External Affairs Minister, NSA, Foreign Secretary. At the airport itself, there was a huddle at the airport, pictures of which we've all seen. The Prime Minister was briefed by the Foreign Secretary, Vikram Misri, on the situation as well as on the global reactions. From 23rd of April to the 6th of May, the Prime Minister had only one order to be given to all those who were concerned. Ajit Doval, the National Security Advisor, leading from the front, was given the mandate to plan retribution. The time, the process, as well as the plan was to be formulated by him and his team, consisting of the Chief of Defence Services, General Anil Chauhan. Also with him were the 3 service chiefs, the Air Chief, the Navy Chief and the Air Force Chief. Between then and 6th of May, 47 meetings were held, and these were held at a safe house where there was no digital footprint. And then on May 7th, the night of May 7th, it was Operation Sindoor that was launched. The plans, 10 plans, were shortlisted. 3 plans were finalized on the evening of 6th of May as the most probable and the most efficient plans for what we wanted as our objectives. But there were four factors on which the efficacy of plans were then measured. Number 1 was the success rate on a factor of 0 to 5. Which would be the most successful plan for the objectives of decimating the terror camps. Number 2 was the equipment, the armory, as well as the range that we had. Number 3 was the range of equipment and Pakistan's preparedness that should be factored into the plans. And number 4 was the issue of which plan would have the least risk of interception, which means 100% success rate. Ladies and gentlemen, Plan A was finalized on the 6th of May in the evening. A war room was set up at the NSA's residence and minute-to-minute updates were being taken. The time that was fixed was 1 a.m. on the 7th of May for the strikes that would be conducted on the terror camps. And then it was a decision to go in for the kill. But just 115 minutes before the strikes were to take place, the plans were changed around. Plan A was put aside and Plan B was pulled into operation. And Plan B it was. 11:10 that evening, Plan A gave way to Plan B, and then came 1:05 when in 23 minutes, 9 terror objectives were met, decimated, and in Bahawalpur, as far as Bahawalpur, in the crown of Pakistan's Punjab, Muridke and Bahawalpur were attacked and the terror camps destroyed. There was just a wall between the family of Masood Azhar and Masood Azhar. Masood Azhar felt that night the pain that was felt by many who had lost their family members in the terror strikes planned by him over the last 2 decades. Masood Azhar cried. He said, "Main kyun nahi mar gaya?" 11 of his family members went into ashes, and Masood Azhar was left to pick up the remains. It was just a whisker that saved Masood Azhar. Well, that was what you saw over the last 1 hour, and now we have Chapter 2 of Operation Sindoor Phase. But before I go to Chapter 2, let me first introduce my esteemed panel tonight. Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt joining me, former DGMO and DG of the Indian Space Association. Also joining me, Air Marshal R.G.K. Kapoor, ex-Air Officer Commanding-in-Chief, Central Air Command. Major Gaurav Arya, Editor Chanakya, Defense and Strategic Affairs expert, joining me in the studios tonight. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow at the IPCS and Strategic Affairs enthusiast, joining me. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, scientist, political commentator, Pakistan commentator now, also in our studios tonight. And the only man outside the studios, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the ORF, joining this panel. Going across to the top breaking news coming up, we will reveal to you how Pakistan pushed its luck. Tonight on the news, we focus on how India told Pakistan categorically after striking the 9 terror hideouts that it was not interested in escalating further. They called up, they informed, they conveyed that we had only one objective, which is to take action on terror. We've destroyed 9 of these hideouts. We are not interested in any further escalations. Message sealed and delivered. Yet, Pakistan didn't quite get the message. They pushed their luck, and they pushed their luck forward in India, trying somehow or the other to inflict pain. Their drones came in one after the other. Their missiles came in one after the other. LOC firing escalated. Gurdwaras were destroyed. Temples were destroyed, as well as civilians were targeted in those villages around the LOC. 14 civilians were killed. There were at least 2 Army BSF men who were killed. And that was what Pakistan did on that day of 7th. Pushing the envelope, taking action, and India was not going to sit back and watch what Pakistan was doing. But Pakistan did what it had to, and India responded. India responded attacking Lahore, air defense systems, Sialkot and Rawalpindi, clearly showing if you move, we will respond. If you try and inflict any damage on our military operations, we will do the so. If you target our civilians, we will do the same. This would be the plan of action. And Major Gaurav Arya, Pakistan pushed its luck. We should have known, but clearly Pakistan was given a chance. Message was conveyed. We are not interested in any escalation. We have not targeted any military installations. We have targeted terror hideouts. You didn't do it in 15 days. That was the time given to you. We are doing it. Yet Pakistan pushed its luck because they thought they had the backing of China and Turkey.
Good evening, Navika, and thank you for inviting me. The problem with Pakistan is that it's always pushing its luck. whether it is 1965, 71, Kargil, there is a certain pattern to it, and it is not just about external help that Pakistan will obviously get. It's also a mindset issue. They feel that they can get away with such kind of behavior. And this is exactly this kind of, pushing the envelope sort of a thing that Pakistan always does. Came in for punishment this time, and I've heard of a lot of Pakistani commentators, many of them balanced, and even they were saying that they were not expecting this sort of a response. Perhaps a bala coat, perhaps a surgical strike, perhaps a mix of both. But hard points going all the way to Karachi, Rawalpindi. This is something that was beyond the imagination of the Pakistanis. And let truth be told here, Navika, the thing is that Pakistan will do this again. Unfortunately, this I'm saying on your show, if we think that Pakistan has learned its lessons, no, Pakistan will do this again. There will be a terror attack in India somewhere down the future. Maybe Pakistan will hold on for 6 months or a year. But it's going to happen. There is too much of pressure from China. There is too much of pressure from other powers that don't want to see India rise. And this is going to happen. It's just the way it is. It is going to happen, and India must be prepared to take punitive action against the Pakistanis. And I would also like to add, Navika, that, we are mostly reactive. Operation Sindoor was launched after Pahalgam. We must not be, and I'm not talking about war, but we must be in a state of at least attrition with Pakistan at all times. So you don't stop the Indus Water Treaty once Pahalgam happens. You see, we must decide, is Pakistan an enemy country or a friendly country? Because in Pakistan, the relationship has to be binary. There are no shades in between. There are no shades of grey. It's either black or white, and we must have a clear-cut understanding. If Pakistan is the enemy, then we must try and break all contact with Pakistan. And punishing Pakistan, and here I'm not saying militarily, I'm saying otherwise. There are so many ways, this all-of-government approach that people talk about so much. This punishing of Pakistan must be constant, it must be consistent, it must be every single day. You can't have Pakistani actors coming into India. You can't have Indians playing cricket matches with Pakistanis, even in Dubai. You can't have trade happening even through a third country. You can't have all these things all the while they're killing our citizens. So we must make up our minds. This constant, state of conflict with Pakistan is what I'm talking about. And I certainly don't mean all-out war. I think there are so many other non-kinetic options that we must exercise regularly, Navika.
Well, I want to get in Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, is Pakistan the 7th of May? Was it because it was alone and it was very brave, or was it because it was being egged on? Is also something that we will need to evaluate. Where do you stand on that particular question that we often don't address, is the elephant in the room?
Navika, before I come to your question, I just have a small query from my friend Gaurav. He mentioned some moment of magnanimity is just trying to be somewhat charitable to them. But because I haven't seen this endangered species anywhere, so I might be missing something. On your question, Navika, look, we really have no solid evidence. We can conjecture that the Pakistanis have put up to it either by the Chinese or by some other power. But we really have no solid evidence on this, except conjectures, number one. Number two, I think we underestimate the stupidity of the Pakistanis to do something on their own in the belief that there will be their partners and their friends and their brotherly countries higher than Himalayas, etc., who will come to their assistance. Now, I think the first part has certainly been proven true, that they've carried out this operation, partly because I don't think they really expected the kind of response that came their way. And even whatever retaliation they expected from India, I don't think the magnitude of the attack which happened from India, and then the fact that India was ready to climb up the escalation ladder to a point where within 3.5–4 days we had decimated a large part of their air defense systems and even their air infrastructure. I don't think they ever expected that. Frankly speaking, even I didn't expect that, quite honestly. So I think they have this habit of getting into a situation and then, as they say in Punjabi, hun ki kara, because now I'm at a dead end. So something like that has happened. The second thing is the other assumption. I think largely from what we are learning the Chinese kept a more or less hands-off approach. Again, you can add two and two together and say, okay, fine, now that the western border seems to be cooling down, suddenly the Chinese have done something provocative by, announcing some new names in Arunachal, stuff like that. This is the standard Chinese playbook, they keep doing that. But in terms of the actual, helping them or trying to put pressure on us on the eastern front so that to distract us from the western front, we haven't seen any evidence of that. The Turks were giving rubbish to Pakistan. I wish they keep giving their rubbish to Pakistan. I would be very happy with it. But I think the Turks, to some extent, did come to the Pakistani assistance. But who else? Azerbaijan is a third-rate country. How does it even matter? It doesn't even count. They have been trying to sell oil to Pakistan. The Pakistanis don't even have money to pay for their oil, right? They have no way to bring that oil also. So Azerbaijan is neither here nor there. But which other country really came to their assistance? Yes, to some extent, you could say that the Americans, either they were convinced by the Pakistanis or whatever, and they tried to come in between and say that, okay, guys, maybe you guys need to back off from each other. But I think the Indian message to the Americans was very clear. We never wanted to escalate. We were only going after the terrorists. It's the Pakistani army which intervened. So we've hit the Pakistani army because they intervened. They intervened the second time, we again hit them. We will keep going after the terrorists if the Pakistan army is not going to clean up its act. That was our position. And if the Pakistan army stops hitting us, we will stop hitting them. That we had made this very clear to the Americans, and we've got it from the highest quarters that this was the messaging to the Americans, right? And the Americans were finally told that if the Pakistanis want firing to stop, then ask them to talk to us and let them stop the firing. It was as simple as that. And when they got a hiding of their life, they called up and sought, to sue for peace, stop firing. And that is what we did. We were ready to do it on the very first day.
Don't run so further in the story, because the chapter 2 has just begun, Sushant Sareen, and how we force them onto their knees is
what your story is, where I just said what I had to say. You can now.
I know. You are firing as quickly as some of our guns fired through those 4 days. But let me tell you, there is the next big breaking that we are going to bring to you is the 90-minute threat that came in from Pakistan. What happened in those 90 minutes is the big question. How Pakistan responded first. Civilian casualties, tried to target our military institutions, installations, and India's round 2 then decimated their air defense systems in Sialkot, in Lahore, as well as in Rawalpindi. But then Pakistan lost its nerve, went running to its big daddies. One big daddy sitting in the United States of America was called and told, we are going to do something very, very big. J.D. Vance, Vice President, United States of America, called Prime Minister Modi. The only one call to Prime Minister Modi was that day on the 8th of May in the morning, after the air defense systems had been decimated by India, that Pakistan lost its nerve and ran running and went to the United States to cry. And when J.D. Vance spoke to Prime Minister gave him just one message. If they hit, we will hit back. Much harder, make no mistake. That was the only exchange. And then do I tell you what happened next, Abhijit Iyer Mitra? You are normally the storyteller, but tonight I have the 90-minute dhamki that came. Pakistan duty officer at the DGMO office conveyed a message that in 90 minutes, Pakistan was going to strike big. That message came in a circuitous route, and the entire team, led by National Security Advisor, asked the Prime Minister the question. This time, they are targeting our air bases, our military installations. The Prime Minister at this stage had only one line to give, And if I can just repeat what I was told, the Prime Minister directed the National Security Advisor, if they use air power and use it against our military targets, you have the free hand to hit anything, any base, any installations. Because till then, the bottom line that had been given was terror camps, nothing else. It was when the 90-minute dhamki came that India did not even waste 1 minute. They went flying and they decimated 13 air bases and installations. The list known by everybody, the list that clearly had its agenda very clear, and the list that included Sargodha, Noor Khan Airport, as well as Rafiki Inshore Court, Murid, Chakwal, Sukur, Sialkot, Pasrur, Chunia, Sargodha, Skardu, Bolari, Jacobabad and Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Nothing was holding India back because it had come down to dhamkis and targeting Indian installations.
So, you know, the main thing out here is that people are very used to watching the American and Israeli style of warfare. There is not just one way of destroying aircraft or, you know, pinning Air Force down on the ground. There are many ways of doing it, and we showed that at Sargodha. At Sargodha, you bombed both the runways, one right in the middle of the crosshair, and Sargodha is their main F-16 base. You've essentially grounded all their aircraft. The implicit threat was we can pick out your F-16s at will as and when we want. At Bolari, you've gone and taken out the AWACS bunker, which means you've removed their eyes in the sky. At Jacobabad, you've gone and bombed a bunker which could, a hangar which could easily have housed about at least 2-3 fighters. Now, we don't have any battle damage assessment from within that. But clearly, this was an extremely high-intensity campaign, but very carefully calibrated, right? We could easily assume about 7 to 8 aircraft. The problem is we've got images of the damage, but we don't have images of the aircraft within this thing. Said, can I?
But let me tell you, let me stop you right there. The big breaking news coming in those strikes at Sargodha, Noor Khan and Jacobabad, the estimate is at least 7 to 8 aircraft, fighter jets of Pakistan have been destroyed. The big breaking news that we're bringing to you on the Newshour tonight, 7 to 8 Pakistani fighter jets have been destroyed. They were parked in their hangars, and Abhijit, those visuals of the hangar destruction are available through satellites, but you don't know how many aircraft were inside. The estimate that Indian agencies have from their intelligence of, as they say, Surte-Hal inside the Pakistani airbase, it is 7 to 8, minimum of 7 aircraft and a maximum of 8, including the F-16s and the J-10.
But the even more important thing is not the aircraft, but the command center that we bombed at the Noor Khan Air Base. The command center plus the mess where all the technical staff and the pilots had assembled. Because if you go to the pre-photos, you will see these have domes on them, you know, which is the classic sign of a command center. And, you know, Noor Khan is located between Rawalpindi and Islamabad. So it's literally like bombing, say, you know, South Delhi, which lies between Noida and Gurgaon kind of thing in an Indian context. So that was an extremely important thing that happened. I don't think we can underestimate the psychological damage of hitting their capital, the suburb of their capital, their crown jewel in the entire arsenal out there. They're two big crown jewels. Sargodha and Noor Khan were hit. Can you imagine the psychological impact? Finally, Navika, if you'll allow me, I need to come back to a misconception that Sushant Sareen has spread. He himself recommended Kamar Chima and Shireen Mazari to follow on Twitter as highly credible sources coming out of Pakistan. So I certainly thank Sushant Sareen for pointing me to credible sources. I do agree with him. Kamar Chima and Shireen Mazari are both highly credible.
Well,
this is typical of Abhijit's scurrilous allegations against me, but I'll deal with him later.
Thankfully, right now we have Pakistan, China and Turkey to deal with. So just hold on for a bit. 7 to 8 aircraft being destroyed. How big is that? And the fact that Pakistan tested our nerve, they pushed their luck. I want to ask you, Air Marshal Kapoor, what does this mean in terms of the successes? Because nobody in India is going to say India succeeded, at least in the opposition. Nobody in Pakistan is going to say that. I want to ask you, 7 to 8 planes in their hangars, if they are destroyed, what does this mean?
See, Pakistan prides itself in its air force, they say. And the strategic messaging, what Abhijit covered just now, in Noor Khan, Sargodha, Rafiki, these are their crown jewels. I mean, there cannot be nothing more important than these 3 air bases, primarily Noor Khan being the command and control center. And if you see those images, you could see those 2 long trucks which are their mobile command posts, and they are kind of things which are used for all command and control which goes on from the headquarters or from the bunkers or from the ops rooms. Now, all these hangars, at all times, no Air Force has got 100% aircraft which are serviceable and flying. And so there are a lot of aircraft which are inside the hangar, which are undergoing servicing, which are undergoing rotation or maintenance and things like that. So when you strike Jacobabad, when you strike Bolari, and I would have been even happier if we had struck the commander's combat school in Sargodha. That would have sent even a bigger strategic message that we are hitting your brain, because that is the brain of Pakistan Air Force. And so these cause a major dent. 7 or 8 aircraft, when you say there are about 17, 18 or 20 squadrons in Pakistan Air Force, may not be very big. But when you see the type of aircraft, if it is true that Bolari had the AEWNC when we struck, that's a big dent. You're just taking out their eyes. Primarily when we took out their air defenses, it was a very orchestrated counter-air campaign where you're doing the suppression of enemy air defense, because you want to create a corridor when you can go inside without being threatened. And similarly, Jacobabad, which is their prime F-16 base, which is the latest F-16s, the F-16 CDs are there. And so the number of those F-16s gone is a big problem for them. And so it is not only the number of aircraft, I think it is more to do with strategic messaging that was there than just number of aircraft. And what I want to highlight also is, Pakistan learned a lot of lessons from Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Israel, Hamas, in terms of that's how they got all these drones together. All these drones were primarily to not only saturate our air defenses, to test our air defense, and to try and see how impregnable these air defenses are. So that, they could counter us. Because if you see, every time Balakot, retaliation was there. It is in their genes, it's in their DNA to retaliate. Whether they succeed or they don't succeed is a different question.
Well, let me also tell you at this point, and that is the big breaking news, and Anand Ranganathan, hear this carefully. The Prime Minister told them take action of a kind that the big threat, the dhamki, the 90-minute countdown that they had said, they said that this means Pakistan should not be allowed to put the nuclear payload, because nuke, हमारे पास nuke है, हमारे पास nukes हैं, हमारे पास nukes हैं, is the only line that they have always used. The Prime Minister's bottom line was they should not be able to load their nukes on their planes. Do what you have to. That was the order that was given, and that's why the decimation happened of the air bases. 7 to 8 aircraft, big losses for Pakistan. And let me ask you, Anand Ranganathan, wo jo Kirana store hai, the entrance of that, Tom Cooper told us, has been affected, the exit has been affected. And is that what was the inflection point in Pakistan's war game?
Good evening, Navika, and good evening to my fellow panelists once again. It merits saying it's an honor and a privilege to be sharing the stage with exalted military professionals and officers. Thank you very much for having me. Whatever time I have been given by you, I want to divide it exactly in two halves. The first half, I want to talk about that how, as you talked about, an inflection point was reached, perhaps by Pakistan. But I think more importantly than that, I think we reached an inflection point. I think in the last 20-25 years, Navika, if you were to chart out what Pakistan has been doing very successfully, both prongs of its defense, or rather offense, have been demolished by Prime Minister Modi. What are they? Since Parliament attack of 2001, when it was meticulously corroborated that Pakistan's ISI was behind it, planning, orchestration, the 2008 Mumbai attacks, 26/11 attack, meticulously, that wasn't just the ISI, it was the Pakistani army and intelligence involved in it. Every single time Pakistan got away by saying that these are non-state actors, right? Second, we have the nuclear button. These two were the bluffs. Now, in this time, as Prime Minister Modi said, there is no distinction anymore between state and non-state. There is no distinction. That Rubicon has been crossed. And the other Rubicon that lies in tatters is the nuclear bluff. So these two things have happened. And now it is never ever going to be the same again. Now, very quickly, because time is of essence, I come to the second part. What Gaurav said, and I completely agree with him. I think Abhijit also corroborated that. They are going to come back. It is in their DNA. They are a terror state. There is no distinction anymore between state and non-state. Now that they are going to come back, what has Modi done? Let me tell you. You know, this is the thing about Prime Minister Modi. Every time when you think he's just made his greatest decision ever, every couple of years he kind of,
reinvents himself.
Does something else that you think, oh, so, you know, before this, I thought his greatest achievement was vaccinating 1 billion people twice over within a year, saving millions of lives. Before that was the Article 370 abrogation. Please, I say this with all responsibility. The keeping in abeyance of Indus Water Treaty 1960 is Narendra Modi's greatest decision ever. Yeah. And I've thought about it. I'm going to write about it very shortly. Why do I say this? Because for the first time, we have a definite handle on going forward to maintain peace in the region. It is in one stroke, it has corrected one of the greatest Nehruvian blunders in history. The other obviously was Article 370 that Modi abrogated. The second correction of Nehruvian blunders has been done. Now, why do I say this? We now have left the onus on Pakistan. You behave and we will keep the Indus waters flowing. You misbehave, you come after us, the tap is off. The tap on off is for peace, not war, and that is Modi's greatest achievement, Navika.
And now the shoe is on the other foot. We are not the one writing dossiers and letters. They are the one. Today the first missive has come from Pakistan to the Indian Ministry of Water, the Jal Shakti mission, saying, Bhaiya pani de do. Well, पानी will take a while. अब तो ऐसी जगह ले जाके मारेंगे, and this is a Hindi film dialogue, ऐसी जगह ले जाके मारेंगे जहां पानी भी नहीं मिलेगा. But let me ask Lieutenant General A.K. Bhatt, and I want to bring you in here because you've been a former DGMO. And what happened after the air bases were destroyed? After severely being debilitated, Pakistan had no option but to once again go back begging for peace and pause in this warfare. Here's what happened next. On the 10th of May, Pakistani jets had been destroyed, 7 to 10 of them, 35 to 40 Pakistani soldiers, technicians, call them what you will. All of them had been declared as casualties. An officer in Pakistan dialed India to halt. Conveyed that message and the DGMO lines work. And they said, ceasefire, ceasefire is what we want to talk about. And you know what India told them? Intezar karo, sochenge. That built up further pressure on Pakistan, and then they went running to, again, their Akas in US. And they said, bacha lo bhaiya, nuclear ho jayega, Sargoda, Kirana, all of that came in that complete begging call that was made. And the Pakistani DGMO then spoke at 3:35 p.m. and it is by that time that India had decided that the lesson had been taught. Do you think this was the turning point? Pakistan, should it be believed? The fact that United States jumped the gun, they knew, they had been informed by Pakistan, but it was in this call between the two DGMOs, after the first missive of ceasefire had already come, that the decision was taken?
Navika, let me explain to me, or try to explain, though I don't know the inside information, that a very clear-cut escalatory ladder had been planned. And like you said, the Prime Minister did order that now attack the airfields. But the entire ladder would have been discussed before, absolutely. I assume. The free hand given to the security forces or to the defense forces meant that the whole plan and the whole escalatory ladder would have been planned. And that is the way it has happened. As soon as Pak has responded to the first level, we have immediately responded and not waited for some time, a few hours or a few days. Those quick responses have made Pakistan go back. And that is why sending airplanes across or hitting airfields is nearly an act of war. From hitting only terrorist camps and telling them, okay, this is where we finish, we have achieved what we want to, we decided in 2 days to raise the level, to go into the airfields. It was a very, very significant act. And definitely, with the losses they had, which you were mentioning, I hope they were that number or maybe more. But the numbers don't matter. What matters is we hit all their airfields. And the message was very clear. So that is why the most significant thing was when the Pakistani DGMO made a request that they want to, they are saying ceasefire or close hostilities or whatever for that time. We had the choice to decide and say, okay, we are going to stop now if you are requesting. And that is what clearly gives it that we had the control of the escalatory ladder from day one. They started it with Pahalgam, but we have ended it from the airfields, and we will go beyond if required later. I can assure Gaurav, if they try anything, the Prime Minister's directions are very clear. The new normals means the act, it will be considered as an act of war. And that means we will again do what we have done or even much more.
Well, Gaurav, isn't that clear from the fact that the briefings of the defense forces have also said this is a suspension of hostilities at the moment? It is not that Operation Sindoor has ended. Does this give the complete battle plan and the complete resolve of the government and the defense forces?
No, battle plan, no, but certainly the resolve is very, very clear that, should Pakistan try any mischief in India, I'm not just saying J&K, and before Sir was a DGMO, he was GOC 15 Corps, and he is commander of the Chinar Corps, so he'll know better than most of us here, that Pakistan has, it can't do without Kashmir, let me tell you this. Because Kashmir the Kashmir policy is around which their diplomacy revolves, their national security revolves. Everything is about Kashmir. It's like riding a tiger. They can't get down from the tiger, and it is only, I mean, Pakistan will be forced to do something, and it's only a matter of time, Navika, and at that point in time, we will have to retaliate. How much ever we retaliate, and I'm sorry if I'm sounding slightly pessimistic about it, but how much ever we retaliate, it is Pakistan's quote-unquote majburi. Even if the, let's say, the politicians don't want to do anything, the army is always up to some mischief or the other, they will try something in Kashmir and they'll try and pass it off as something that is done by the local quote-unquote mujahideen, who are actually terrorists, but quote-unquote mujahideen. That is what Pakistan will do. And what will the construct of a retaliation be in Kashmir or any other place in Pakistan? I think that only the future can tell, but yes.
Can I interject for 10 seconds?
Anna.
What you say might possibly come true. Certainly over the last 60, 70 years, that has been the primary focus. But the goings-on within Pakistan, I think, changes things. It shifts the focus. I think now Balochistan, with what has been happening in the last week, I think the focus of Pakistan just might change from or shift from Kashmir to Balochistan.
Is it true? Is it true? Do you think that will happen, or will Pakistan always try to use Baluchistan to be replaced by attack on India, to bring their forces together, to stand by them, use it as a political tool as well?
So, you know, they've traditionally used Kashmir and Islam as a rallying tool. Remember, the case for Bangladesh was a linguistic one, and they always used to say Islam khatre mein to rally it. Now, you know, Kashmir is one of those things which is all about Islam trumping ethnicity, because, you know, Kashmiris on this side of the border and Kashmiris on that side of the border are completely different beasts. Our Kashmiris are the ones who eat Gushtaba Rishta. Their Kashmiris are the ones who eat Rajma Chawal types. This one's the वो क्या डैम है उधर? हाँ वो मीरपुर खास वाले. Those chaps who are the biggest criminals when you go to the UK, because they were all settled out there. They were forcefully removed when the dam was built and settled out there. Now, you have to understand, this is a huge psychological difference out there, even in the Pashtun insurgency, the Baloch insurgency. What is happening here? They're going on trying to use Islam to compensate for ethnic demands that have been raised because of the complete failure of the Pakistani state to perform as a proper state. It's an extractive, extortive, feudal, corrupt little enterprise where a bunch of 200,000 families sit and extort everybody else in that this thing, right? So we need to understand this. Second, we also need to understand they will go to any extent. They have never been worried about the loss of life as long as it is not the elite loss of life. They don't care how many people from the average slum in Karachi or a middle income housing in Lahore die, as long as these 200,000 odd people sitting at the top of society continue to keep extracting and extorting it totally. And this is why, you know, the finesse of our strikes matters so much. We understood that mindset. It wasn't aimed at the Pakistani people. You look at what happened in Bolari and Bahawalpur. These are classic cases of intelligence. Bahawalpur, we got the family. Imagine how much human intelligence and coordination, last minute coordination it took to be there right at the spot where Masood Azhar probably was. I don't know how the fellow escaped, but whatever. Bolari,
because he needed to experience, and I'm telling you, this is divine justice.
It is.
You make, you know, you kill people, you make their families suffer. Well, first, God will bestow the same thing to you, and then
I hope he now believes in the Hindu concept of karma, because karma came back to bite him. And Bolari, the same thing happened with the Saab aircraft, Navika. We suspect, we don't know, we have not been able to confirm. I need to be very clear about this. Because, you know, head counts of aircraft out on the tarmac take time. But in Bolari, we suspect the raid was carried out precisely when the AWACS had gone into that particular bunker. We could be wrong. But, you know, it shows you we've moved from, you know, crude, big strikes to extraordinary finesse. Even the New York Times is forced to admit highly limited in impact. My God. I mean, the Islamabad Times admitting to it, I'm very impressed.
You're calling the New York Times Islamabad Times.
So what should I call it? The Jihad, Pakistani Jihad Times?
Sushant Sareen is grinning ear to ear. Sushant, what do you make of this? And this whole thing about, you know, Donald Trump stepping in. There was no phone call between the Prime Minister and President Trump. That's one takeaway that we have from this entire story. Not one phone call in those 4 or 5 days, or in fact, you know, the entire planning period of 47 meetings in safe houses, post which the Prime Minister was kept in the loop. Nowhere was there any call from Donald Trump. There was one call from J.D. Vance after Pakistan called up and said that, you know, we need some reprieve, and they've destroyed our air defense systems. We will do something big. That was the blackmail that they used, the nuclear blackmail, to which the Prime Minister responded. So where is all this fodder that our opposition parties within India getting from कि सब कुछ तो Donald Trump ने किया?
So, Navika, part of it is pure politics, okay, and you know, I think that's par for the course, simply because Donald Trump is constantly saying this. He wants to take credit. He wants to show to the world that he is the guy who saved the world from some kind of a nuclear exchange. Even though I think just today, the Pakistani Deputy Prime Minister, Munshi Ishaqdar, he's the Munshi basically, he has said that absolutely there is no question of any nuclear exchange. We were not going to go in for any kind of nuclear exchange. So if the Pakistani political guys are saying that there was no question of any nuclear exchange, then what nuclear exchange is Donald Trump talking about? But I think he's trying to pretend to his own constituency back home and to the rest of the world that he is this great peacemaker when he's nothing, right? There was, from the highest quarters again we've learned, there was no question of any trade talks or any leveraging of trade with any kind of, backing off from the confrontation that was taking place. Nothing of the sort. As you correctly said, there was only one phone call from J.D. Vance. Yes, there was some communication with Marco Rubio, but that was part of the diplomatic outreach of India. And it was not just Marco Rubio, the foreign minister and other people were talking to their counterparts in different capitals around the world, right? We were trying to drum up our own diplomatic support. The Saudis, when they came to India, they didn't say anything. They didn't even try to mediate. They came purely to commiserate with us, in a manner of speaking, right? They were not part of any mediation. Nothing of the sort. So the point is that Trump can say whatever, but because Trump is saying, it gives the opposition a bit of a handle and it gives the Pakistanis a face saver. But let me just come back to a point. Navika, allow me half a minute. 30 seconds as Anand Ranganathan keeps asking you and then takes 1 minute.
It's becoming a universal problem of 30 seconds more when you actually take 3 minutes.
Oh, come on.
But Navika, on this whole thing which Gaurav had spoken about and my other colleagues on the panel also agree. Yes, the Pakistanis will try something. Yes, it's a congenital thing with them that they will want to try something. What are the limits? But I think they also understand that the new doctrine that has been enunciated means that over the next couple of weeks, if not already, the Indian state would have already pre-designated targets that they are going to hit in the event of any terror attack coming from Pakistan. And the chances are that the attack which the Indians will launch will be within hours, not in days. Forget weeks, forget days, it will probably be within hours. I think that is the kind of capability that is being brought to bear. If the Pakistanis expect that, what it means is that they will, before they launch a big terror attack on India, to check how serious India is about this new doctrine, which they will try and test, they will first try and refurbish all that they have lost. Second, they will also, before they launch a terror attack, I think we will see telltale signs of them becoming hyperactive to absorb any Indian attack coming towards their side. So that will be a telltale sign that they're trying to do something. So I think there will be enough signatures in the day ahead, in the days and weeks and months ahead, whether if the Pakistanis are trying to do something. But I think it's very clear from the Indian doctrine that now a red line has been established. That does not mean that, that even one particular attack will mean, or one particular casualty somewhere will mean that, the jets are going to go and missiles are going to fly. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not going to hazard a guess on that. It could very well be the Israeli model that the day you hit one person also, we are coming for you, regardless. Now, it could be that. It could be something more than that. But I think that is something we also need clarity on. But other than that, the message to the Pakistanis is very clear. And even more importantly, that we will continue to escalate. We will continue to escalate. And if you can't handle the terrorists, we will handle them for you. So either you stop it or we will.
Absolutely, you're absolutely bang on. When I was speaking to my sources, they are in a ready condition. It is, probably a 30-second notice that is required for them to be battle ready. Gaurav Arya.
Yes. Very quickly, Donald Trump needed a win. He said within 24 hours of my taking over as president, the Ukraine-Russia war will stop. He said, if you don't give back the hostages, I will obliterate Hamas. He said the war is going to stop within 48 hours of my taking over as president. And he made so many promises. He threatened the Houthis, who responded by bombing his warship. This man needed a win desperately, and when Pakistan crawled to him, he took whatever he took, and he said that I am the peace broker. He needed a win. He has not been getting this win that he has promised all along.
Well, Anand Ranganathan, hasn't he worsened his own position by saying, oh, these fellas are great friends of mine and let's go out for day. You know, the first day, probably he could, as Gaurav is saying, gone for the win. But now he's made so many statements that nobody takes him seriously.
Navika, may I add two things in this? And maybe I am not in agreement with the House totally. One, for any confrontation, you do require a mediator. Some kind of mediator. It may not be an active mediator. And the second is, you had to give a face saver, which Sushant mentioned. And both happened. We have to ignore it and not highlight it now and say, okay, America did a major issue. Okay, we required somebody there.
Okay.
Navika, whatever everyone said, especially Sushant, is true.
I need 10 seconds.
Oh.
I need 10 seconds. Anand, please, allow me.
Okay.
Please. Okay. So General Saab, very, with great, all due respect, I must disagree with you. It is imperative that Pakistan is not given a face saver and made to withdraw by rubbing their nose in the dust. Until and unless you do that to these Punjabi Muslims, they will not get the lesson. So please, let us not get into this habit of giving them a face saver. You have to rub their nose in the dust because these fellows will not learn otherwise. So please, I very humbly submit to you that I don't agree that they need to be given a face saver, sir.
Yeah, Anand. So, Navika, just because Sushant is 100% Punjabi, you've given him 3 minutes.
You're
30 seconds. Yeah, so at least give me half that. Now, look, it begs repeating why I said what I said the first time round. And let me emphasize on that. Does anyone, I speak as a layman, does anyone earnestly believe that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has ended? Absolutely not. Yes. In fact, it has escalated after the events of the last couple of years. So it is a feeding machine. War, there is a cost for it. When we say we will always attack, we have to be perpetually ready, whatever the cost may be, but we are prepared to bear it. So yes, we'll go ahead. That is why I emphasize, it is always better to have a handle where war is not a deterrent. And right now we have that handle. Israel doesn't. The Indus Water Treaty is the perfect handle because maintaining peace is in Pakistan's hands. There is no cost to us.
Well, absolutely, you said it there, but on Operation Sindoor files that we've been breaking here on Times Now for the last 2 hours, I want to tell you just the big takeaways. Number one, the Prime Minister needed no nudging. It was on 22nd April in Riyadh where he had come to a conclusion that retribution had to follow. There was no if, there was no but. Number two, meticulous planning, led by National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. Safe house meetings, 47 of them, round-the-clock meetings, every single detail was worked out. But first, over and above the implementation stage was the intelligence. And the intelligence was so bang on that 9 targets of the terror camps were hit with precision. Such precision that it missed Masood Azhar by just a wall in between. That shows the level to which we had our intelligence. Number three, we didn't want this war. We had destroyed the terror camps, and that's what the Prime Minister said. We've destroyed the terror camps and we don't want to escalate it. Fair. Nobody in this world any longer in this era is fair about these things, but India conveyed the message to Pakistan, we will not escalate beyond this. Pakistan provoked, targeted civilians, targeted temples, pushed missiles, damaged some of our equipment. And it was then at that time, Prime Minister was wearing a cap with a trishul. Tisri aankh khuli. Shiv ka tandav hua. And then Pakistan had to pay. And this was the retribution, the payment that had to come from Pakistan. The air bases were destroyed so much so that even their nuclear command center, their aircraft, 7 to 8 of them, and their nuclear storage center had some damages. Pakistan went running for a ceasefire. The ceasefire was given. But that's not enough. And I want to conclude, as I thank my panelists tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude by saying it doesn't end here. Even if we are not at war, we are very clear. Turkey, China, Azerbaijan, the countries that have been inimical to India in these 4 days. People of India, citizens of India are enough to pay you back. We don't need a war with you. Tourism to Turkey is facing cancellations. Ground handling contracts to various companies from Turkey. The government, and I can break this right now, the government is planning and looking, even as we speak, on ending these contracts because national security clause exists in every single agreement and contract that we have. Turkey, Azerbaijan, watch out. Indian government and Indian citizens will not take it lying down. More on this coming up on the other side on the Newshour agenda. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on this special edition of the Newshour tonight.